It's just frustrating because this one with the premise like this, it should not be this boring. But like the ending was such a letdown for me in a way. What? Like she's one of those like obnoxious influencers who thinks that everybody's just obsessed with her. Hey, how's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be starting on another thriller and horror reading vlog because there have been a lot of thriller and horror books publishing very recently that I've been very excited about, that I thought it would be fun to just read them all together for this reading vlog. The first thriller that I'm going to be checking out is this one called The Night of the Storm. This is one that I'm really excited about because this is actually from a debut thriller author. I don't really know too much about this one other than that we're following this family that lives in Houston, Texas, and there's like this huge deadly hurricane that is about to happen. And then it also kind of turns into a murder mystery, I guess, because somebody turns up dead and then it's like they're all locked in the same house together and it's like, who's the killer? I'm also going to be reading this new horror novella that just recently came out called Your Shadow Half Remains. And this has got to be one of my most top anticipated books of the year just because this book describes itself as The Last of Us meets Bird Box, which, like, I'm sorry, what? Those are two of my absolute favorite things. All I really know about this book is that we're following a protagonist who lives in this world where it's kind of like an apocalyptic situation because nobody looks at each other face to face anymore, because there's something about looking at another person and looking them in the eyes that makes them go absolutely crazy. It does sound very similar to Bird Box in that way, and so that's why I'm so excited to read this one. I got the audiobook checked out from my library. I'm also going to be reading The Reformatory by Tanana Reeve-Dew in this reading vlog, which I'm so excited because this is a horror book that is massive. It's over 550 pages long, and this one is actually my book club booktube pick for the month of February. So we're going to be doing a live show very soon for this. The live show will probably already have happened by the time that this reading vlog goes up, so I will have that link down below if you missed it. This is a horror book that takes place in the 1950s. We follow this young boy who's getting sent to this place called the Reformatory. That's like this school for boys that honestly functions like more of a prison than anything. And then we're also following his sister Gloria as she's trying to get him out of this place called the Reformatory, but Robbie has this thing, like this little boy, he has this thing where he can like see ghosts at the Reformatory. And I'm really looking forward to reading this book and discussing it with everyone. And then the last thriller that I'm going to be reading for this reading vlog is The Resort. This one was recently a book of the month pick, and it's a thriller that I've been very excited about. I mean, on the back description here, it just says it was a vacation to kill for. Like, do I need to know anything more than that? Apparently this one takes place in Thailand, which I think is going to be very fun. I love the idea of it having like island vibes. We're following this protagonist named Cass, and she apparently has all of these dark secrets from her past, and now years later she's a local dive instructor. It says when suddenly a dive student is found dead and paradise comes crashing down, this isn't the first mysterious death on the island and it won't be the last. So this sounds like another situation where like there might be a killer among them. It sounds like it might actually have similar vibes to The Night of the Storm, so we'll have to see how these go. I don't know about you, but for me, I feel like 2024 has been off to kind of a rough start, and I feel like now more than ever it's been really important for me to have more self-care in my daily routine. I've recently started taking these classes on Skillshare that are all related to the self-care essentials, one of those being embrace, nurture, and grow your authentic self. Something really helpful about Skillshare is how they have these different learning paths that you can take, where if you're interested in a certain subject, they'll have a few classes that you can take that are all under the same theme. And these learning paths are cool because they're curated class collections to master a specific skill. So it's nice because you don't have to spend more time trying to search for classes that fit the specific skill that you're looking for, and it helps you have a more clear path when it comes to learning a new skill because it can take you from beginner to advanced. And Skillshare is really great because it's the largest online learning community for creatives, and it has thousands of classes that are led by industry pros across film, illustration, design, painting, crafting. There are so many different skills that you can learn through Skillshare. I think now more than ever at the beginning of a new year, it can be the perfect time to invest your time in learning a new skill, taking some of your creative passions and taking them to the next level. I've been using Skillshare for years now, and I really do think that Skillshare is the best place for not only like creative people, but also anybody who's really career driven to learn new things. The first 500 people to click the link down below will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, which I highly recommend checking out and taking advantage of because it's a month of free learning. How exciting is that? So thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. And now let's get on to the reading vlog. Let me send you back to about a week ago when I started.
Occupied, man, I was on a high. I could run forever to get a minute, just a minute of your time.
wanted to do the first update because it has been a very busy day. Earlier today, I finally made these blueberry cream cheese puff pastry things that I've been wanting to make for literally weeks now, and I'm so glad that I made them because even though it was a little bit chaotic and kind of messy to make them, the end result was so worth it. Like, they ended up being so freaking delicious. I'll have the recipe linked down below that I used, by the way, to make those, but it turned out so good. And then later tonight, while I was eating dinner, I was able to start on The Night of the Storm, and I got about 90 pages in, and so far I'm feeling just okay about this one. In this story, we're following an Indian American family who is living in Texas when there's this hurricane that's going on, and it seems like this hurricane just keeps getting worse and worse than they were expecting it to be. And so our main protagonist that we're following, her name is Gia, and she's a single mother of a 12-year-old boy. She's recently dealing with a lot of fallout from her recent divorce, and her apartment gets evacuated because of the hurricane that's going on. So her sister, Seema, she invites her over to her place so that they can all be under the same roof during this hurricane. But then even more family members start showing up to this house, and there's instantly some like family drama because a lot of members of the family don't really get along. You know what's interesting too though is that in the premise of this, it says as the storm escalates, tensions rise quickly and soon someone's dead. Was it a horrible accident or is there a murderer in their midst? I mean, so far I'm 90 pages in and not a whole lot has happened yet. I mean, nobody's been murdered yet, that's for sure. I'm already kind of feeling the urge like I want to DNF this. I mean, at times I have found the writing to be pretty interesting and I'm getting invested. Like, the most interesting thing to me about this story is the aspect of this hurricane. Like, I want to know more about the hurricane. Like, I want to know what the heck is going on. I think it's so scary. Like, I've personally never lived through a hurricane. Like, I've never had that experience. And so, like, the idea of living through a really intense, catastrophic hurricane like this, like, that sounds really terrifying to me. And so I just want more of that in this book. I mean, so far in this story, it's been a lot more focused on the family drama between these characters. There's also a situation where one of the characters is concerned about this man from her past and she doesn't know if this man is like following her or still like around. It's like creepy, like is he there? Is he watching her? Like they don't know. There's also just a lot of history with this family that keeps getting brought up. Like they have all of these issues with each other. One thing though that I really loved about the writing is when it said he had always hated storms, especially thunder, calling it earthquakes in the sky. Like I love that because I'm also not the biggest fan of thunder and lightning personally. Like that shit scares the shit out of me. And so I like that analogy, like earthquakes in the sky. Like that's such a cute way to look at it. I don't know, I really liked that. But yeah, I don't know. So far the mystery elements of this book are not pulling me in, and usually like family drama and thrillers can be very hit or miss for me, and so far this one just isn't gripping me right away the way that I thought that it could. But I don't know, I think I am gonna continue with it for now. God, earlier tonight we had my Patreon movie night for The Notebook, which was both like a great pick but also like maybe not the best pick for a Patreon movie night because it was so sad and so depressing, and I definitely cried quite a bit on camera, which was so embarrassing, but it was also just like really refreshing to watch that movie again. Like it's been a few years since I've seen it, and it definitely holds up for me as a favorite, which is crazy because I was talking about this on the live stream, but like The Notebook, at least plot wise, it has a lot of tropes that I don't usually like, but for some reason that movie is just so god tier for me. I think it mostly has to do with the chemistry that exists between Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams. Like their chemistry is unmatched, and like I genuinely believe that if that movie had any different actors in it, I don't think I would love it nearly as much as I do, but there's something about their performances, like they're just so convincing in that movie, and I just love it so much. So it was a great movie night watching The Notebook, and now it's about 10 o'clock at night, so I'm probably just gonna chill for the rest of the night and watch The Traitors, which is a current reality TV show game that I'm obsessed with thanks to my friend Brittany. She recommended this show to me, and it has people from Big Brother on it, which is super cool, and I've only seen the first 3 episodes of the first season, but I'm probably gonna try to watch more tonight. I'm just really enjoying it. And then tomorrow is gonna be the Super Bowl, which will be exciting. I'm going over to my parents' house, and it should be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. So hopefully at some point I'll be able to read some more of this and update you when I can. The friendship bracelet.
I made them for you guys.
The details. It's so cute.
Be nice to each other. Oh my god. Yeah. Be nice.
Hello, it is the next afternoon. Yesterday was the Super Bowl. I spent it with my family. It was so much fun. Typically, I could not give a fuck about football. Like, football is not my favorite sport. It's never been my favorite sport. And so usually watching the Super Bowl, it's like my eyes just glaze over and I get so bored because I don't really care about football. But like that game yesterday was actually very entertaining. Like, it was so close. The fact that it went into overtime, that was crazy. And like the fact that the Chiefs won literally within like the last like 3 to 6 seconds, like that was insane. Like my heart was racing and I didn't even really care that much about who was winning the game, but like, oh my gosh, what a comeback. Like that was so much fun to watch. And so I'm glad that it ended up being a very exciting game. I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the halftime show with Usher. Like, I like Usher just fine as an artist. Like, I don't think he's a bad artist or anything, but like a lot of the songs were just kind of like slow and it was just kind of boring to watch. But anyways, I wanted to update you because I've still been reading The Night of the Storm. I'm actually now 54% of the way through the audiobook and I'm so sorry to say this, but I think I have to DNF. Like, this book is just not doing it for me. At about 54% of the way through the book, we are just now getting to the point where like deaths and things are starting to happen, where like the mystery elements of the story are really starting to kick in. But like, I am so uninvested and I just do not care. I feel like even the scene surrounding the death with this character, it was not as mysterious or interesting as I was hoping for. And I feel like so far a lot of this book has just been so much family drama. Like, this book is so slow in the pacing because there's a lot of like flashback chapters of this family and their drama, and the family drama to me personally, it's not even that interesting. It's more like marital drama where like spouses are potentially cheating on each other and their secrets, like in that way, and just a bunch of shit that I just don't really find that interesting. Like, I don't know, even the family drama aspects just aren't interesting to me, and I just think it's really unfortunate, you know, because the most appealing aspect of this book to me is the idea of this hurricane and like the threat of this hurricane. But at this point in the time, 50% in, like, I just really don't feel the threat of this hurricane. Like, it just doesn't feel like it's as much about the hurricane as I want it to be. It's more just like a story about this family and the drama that's going on with the family, and I just don't care as much as I want to. It's just frustrating because this one with a premise like this, it should not be this boring, you know? Like, it should really be hooking me by now, and I am not hooked. But I think right now, while I'm at the gym, I think I might start listening to the audiobook for Your Shadow Half Remains, because I do have this one on audio actually from the publisher, and this audiobook is a short one, you know, because this is a horror novella, I'm pretty sure. The audiobook says it's only about 4 hours long, so I should be able to listen to a good chunk of this while I'm at the gym today. Okay, hi, it is after 10 o'clock at night. Earlier today, I went to the gym, I came home, I made some dinner like you saw. I made that like chicken broccoli Alfredo that I've been really into lately. And then me and my sister ended up watching 3 episodes of The Traitors. Like, I finally got her hooked onto this show. The Traitors is a reality kind of game show that's currently streaming on Peacock, and I am currently obsessed with it. Like, I think it's so much fun. And so I rewatched the first 3 episodes of season 1 with my sister and got her hooked onto it, which was really great. And then literally while I came upstairs and I was finishing my little journal for the day, I finished listening to Your Shadow Half Remains. It really was such a short audiobook that I finished it so much faster than I was expecting to. And this book is one that I have such mixed feelings on. You know, the main reason why I was intrigued with this book is because this book is described as Bird Box meets The Last of Us, which are 2 of my favorite things. So I was very much looking forward to this. And in this story, we're following this protagonist named Riley, which, like, again, I think this is like the 3rd book I I've read this month that has a main character named Riley. Like, what are the chances? And she's living in this apocalyptic world where people cannot look at each other. It does feel very Bird Box in this way because, you know, they constantly are having to wear like blindfolds. Like, you cannot look another human being in the eyeballs. And it's even gone so far that she's like, you know, taken down any mirrors in her home. Like, she doesn't even see her own reflection. Like, that's how much you cannot look into another person's eyes, or else you go crazy and I guess you start murdering people and you just get really violent all of a sudden. But in this story, it's interesting because she has this new neighbor, Ellis, that's living down the street. And as her and Ellis start to become friends, she starts to crave looking at Ellis like more than ever before. And you know, the story's interesting. It's only about 170 pages, right? It's a novella, it's short. Something I really enjoyed about the book is the writing. Like, I thought the writing was instantly very compelling. I felt very attached to Riley as a protagonist almost right away. Like, I just thought the book was written in a way that was very interesting. And even though this world was a little bit hard to understand at times, because I feel like there are a little bit of plot holes with a story like this. Like, I don't know if it was just me like over analyzing everything, but like some of it just didn't really make sense. And I feel like some of it was a little bit unrealistic, at least the way like the apocalypse was kind of like panning out, like the way that it talked about it. It's like they had a grasp on what was happening so quickly. Because she was saying like they were only like 2 weeks into the apocalypse or something, and she already had everything kind of like figured out about like how the world worked at that point. And I just found that to be a little bit unrealistic. Like, I don't know, but I was very intrigued by, you know, the state of the world and like what was going on in their universe and how they had to like, you know, adjust to this life where they couldn't look other human beings in the eyes and they just couldn't have any interactions with other people. Like, it's very interesting. I did end up writing down some quotes that I really think describe the mood and the tone of this book, because she had this one quote where she said, "If you lost your mind, how would you know?" And I feel like that quote right there really sums up the kind of tone of this book. I also did think, you know, this book had a lot of very thought-provoking quotes at times, like when she says, "It doesn't always mean we survive. If it comes right down to it, what is survival supposed to mean? What does that look like now?" And then she says, "That pitch black room standing in its midst, the sound of your blinking eyelids like the click of insects, the rush of your breathing too afraid to take a step. It looks like nothing at all, and that's the point." Kind of saying that even if you are surviving this apocalypse, like, you're not truly living anymore. I just feel like there was a lot of like thought-provoking and interesting quotes in this book talking about how like there's no way to be sure of anything, and how that's truly like the fear of the unknown, you know, because it's not just like, oh, I'm afraid that I can't look people in the eyes anymore. It's like, I'm afraid that like I don't have any way to access information anymore. Like, you are completely isolated from the rest of the world in an apocalypse kind of situation of this kind. So it's just really interesting the way that this book was written. It was very thought-provoking. Like, I really liked the writing style overall, but I also think this book had so much potential to be really interesting, and then it just never really went anywhere for me. Like, by the ending of the book, I was actually shocked. I was like, wait, that's the ending? Like, I was just listening to it on my freaking headphones, and then it just said acknowledgements, and I was like, wait a second, and I had to go back and like reread that final chapter, and I was like, that is the end of this book? I know I rarely ever say this about novellas, but I really genuinely feel like I could have had this be a little bit longer and I would have enjoyed it more, just because I feel like this world barely got explored. Like, I just feel like I wanted so much more from this world and these characters. It's just such an interesting idea, but then I really feel like towards the end, I was getting more confused than anything. Like, especially on those last like 20 to 30 pages, it was almost like hard for me to follow like what was even happening. And then by the ending, I was just left feeling a little bit underwhelmed and like I just wanted more from this. I don't know. It's like, it's hard for me to rate something like this because I really think there was so much potential here, and I think the story was really interesting, the characters were interesting, but like the ending was such a letdown for me in a way. I don't know. I'm feeling like this one's gotta be around 3 stars. Like, it was okay. It could have been great. I feel like this is when it pains me the most to have to give a book 3 stars, because there is so much potential here for this to be a new favorite for me, and the fact that it didn't live up to all of the, you know, expectations I guess that I had for it in my head, like, that is truly devastating. And yet this is still one that I could, you know, recommend, that I enjoyed. I really don't think though that this is going to be a huge like people pleaser kind of book, because it's very like slow burn, it's very character driven, and because it's a novella, like there's just not enough time to explore a lot of the cool things that are happening in this story. So like, I don't know, I don't see this one being very like widely loved by audiences, but you know, I could be wrong. I mean, I'm glad that I finally read it, you know, because it was one of my most anticipated books of the year. I just wish that I had more enjoyment with this one. has been several days since the last time that I updated this vlog. I have been reading The Reformatory by Tananarive Due. I've probably been reading this for like a little bit over a week now. I read the first 150 pages of this a little bit over a week ago, and then I took a break from it to film the manga video that I did earlier this month. And then over the last like 3 or 4 days, I've just been reading the rest of this. I actually had my friend Brittany came and visited, and she stayed over here for a few days. And so we were like making trips out to like local coffee shops and just getting to chill and read together, which was really nice. And then tonight I finally finished it. I feel like I've been reading this book for so long and I never got the chance to update this vlog because this one is a book that I feel like is a little bit hard for me to talk about just because the subject matter is so sad. But if you didn't know, this is actually my booktube book club pick for the month of February. And this one is a horror book that is on the lengthier side, you know, it is over 550 pages long and it is a tad bit outside of my comfort zone because even though it is horror, this one is a little bit of a historical fiction kind of book because it takes place in Florida in the 1950s. And this book is just really depressing, you know, because we're following this 12-year-old boy named Robert. Like, he's our protagonist, and right at the beginning of this book he gets sentenced to 6 months at this place called the Reformatory. And this Reformatory is this like Gracetown school for boys, but it is an absolutely horrific place. Like, it's basically jail. Nobody wants to go there. And so this story is kind of told not only from Robert's perspective, you know, as he's going to the Reformatory, but then we also do follow his sister Gloria. We follow her point of view as well as she's trying to figure out what she can do to help get her brother out of this place because this is not a great place. Like, you do not want to be at the Reformatory. What makes this book really interesting is the fact that Robert can actually see ghosts. And so that's kind of where some of the paranormal kind of horror elements of this story really come in. I feel like I have really mixed feelings about this book because for me, the first like 200, even up to the first like 250 pages felt very slow. I mean, I think what Tananarive Due does very well is that she builds her characters. Like, she builds a lot of tension. She's really good at character development and really like fleshing out her characters. But for me, the story really was slow at the beginning and it didn't really pick up until close to like 250 pages in for me. But then once the story picked up, oh my gosh, I was so invested. I just really cared about these characters, and so in the second half I was incredibly invested in what was going on. There was even a plot twist that I personally didn't see coming. Like, I kind of feel stupid now looking back on it that I didn't see that coming, but it actually did kind of shock me, and in the moment I was like, oh shit, like the stakes just got so much higher. I feel like especially towards the end there were so many things in the plot that ended up really shocking me, and I especially love and appreciate the author's note at the end of this book, which I highly recommend reading, because in the author's note this author kind of talks about a personal connection that she has with the story and why she felt the need to write this, and it was just so beautiful. Like, it literally moved me to tears. I just think the author's note at the end of this book is so powerful, and like there's a quote from the author's note that I really would want to read to you, but it definitely has a spoiler for the book, so I'm not going to do that. But that's why I'm even more glad that I ended up having this for the book troop as a book club discussion, because I do think this book is going to make for a really great book club discussion, even though it's going to be really fucking depressing probably. As far as my like overall rating goes right now, I'm still torn over how I want to rate this. I mean, I'm leaning anywhere right now between like 4 stars, 4.5 stars, or 5 stars. Like, I need to let it sit with me for a minute. I think my only dilemma with this one is that I think the story itself, like the actual story and the message, is 5 stars for me, no doubt. And the author's note only makes me even feel more like I should rate this 5 stars, but also because of the experience that I had with the beginning of this book being as slow as it was, it kind of makes me want to give it like a 4.5 instead. Like, I don't know, I feel like I'm really gonna figure out my feelings for this book even more after we have our book club discussion, so I will have the live show linked down below. It might have already happened by the time that this vlog goes up. But yeah, wow, The Reformatory. I'm so glad that I had another huge success for my own book club, you know, because there's always been this running joke that like I never like my own books for my book club, the book troop. Like, it rarely ever happens that I enjoy the books for my book club, and so far for the year of 2024, I've enjoyed both January and February. Like, this is crazy. So like, very exciting that I ended up enjoying this one as much as I did. I'm so happy about it. Anyways, it's a little bit later in the night. I need to update my Hobonichi planner from the last couple of days because like I haven't updated it in a few days now. And so I'm gonna update my journal tonight, and then tomorrow I'm gonna be going out to this park with my mom, and then hopefully starting on the next read tomorrow. So I will update you then. Okay, hello, it is the next morning. Yesterday I did end up going out to the park with my mom and we had a really nice afternoon, and it kind of sucks because we were out on the bench like talking for a while and then the rain started coming down pretty heavy on us, so we ended up having to go back to my car. But it was a really nice afternoon just getting out. I really love going down to that park and I want to try to prioritize going down there more often this year because it just really makes me happy when I go there. But anyways, last night I didn't get the chance to update you, but I started reading The Resort last night. I got about 142 pages in. I got all the way up to chapter 14. Something that I think is really cool and really unique about this book is the fact that it takes place in Thailand, and like the island vibes in this book have been pretty immaculate so far. Like I really do like the atmosphere in this book. It really does feel like it's taking place on an island and it makes it very fun. So in this story we're following this protagonist named Cass. She has left her past behind and she has this very mysterious past that she keeps talking about, and now it's been a few years that she's been in Thailand and she's now engaged to this guy named Logan. She's actually like a dive instructor, so she like has her own life, you know, like she's built a life for herself here. And then in the beginning somebody leaves her a note that just says, "I know who you are." So it's kind of like, what the heck, like what is going on, what is that? And then we get two point of views in this book. So the second point of view that we're reading from is this girl named Brooke, and she is this like TikTok influencer kind of person, and she also, ironically enough, has a very mysterious past that we're trying to figure out in this book. So this story really kicks off when one of the dive students is found dead, and it says that this isn't the first mysterious death on the island and it won't be the last. So it's kind of like a situation where somebody dies and then they think that there might be like a killer among them. So far I will admit that I don't think I'm loving this that much. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the writing style. Like first of all, the chapters are very long. Like some of the chapters are a little bit shorter, but most of the chapters are so long where I'm like, this can really be cut down to like help with the pacing. Like I think pacing wise it feels a little bit slow to me at times. I also feel like both of these characters, like Cass and Brooke, they literally read exactly the same. Like I always have to remind myself like, wait, who am I even reading from right now? Also, this influencer girl, Brooke, she is absolutely driving me nuts because like anytime somebody like looks at her or approaches her or like wants to talk to her, she's like, oh my god, like they probably know who I am, like I'm just a celebrity, like they probably know me from my Instagram. Like she's one of those like obnoxious influencers who thinks that everybody's just obsessed with her, and like she has to mention the fact that she has an Instagram or like a TikTok called Brooke a Trip every 2 sentences. Like I'm not even kidding, she just brings it up so often. I'm like, okay, we get it, you're an influencer. I definitely considered DNFing this book almost like right off the bat because I was just kind of annoyed with these characters and I found them to be a little bit obnoxious right at the beginning. But I am a little bit more invested now. Like there was something that just happened at the end of chapter 13 that I didn't really see coming, so I was like, oh, okay, like that's interesting. Like I'm back, I'm invested in it again. And I also really do like the island vibes. Like I do think that this one has a good like island atmosphere so far. I like the idea of like following characters who are like taking a diving class and like, you know, vacationing on Thailand. I think it's really fun. And this book is about like 360 pages. I feel like I should have no problem finishing this up today. I mean, I'm already 40% of the way through the audiobook. I do have a few other things that I have to do today, like filming wise. I need to film another video and maybe edit something else. I do want to go to the gym this afternoon, so hopefully at some point I'll be able to get back into reading this and finish it up today. Much later in the afternoon. I've had a very productive afternoon because I was able to film the video that I was trying to film earlier today. I did go to the library to pick up some holds, and then I did just come to the gym. Like, sorry if my face looks kind of red, but I was just on the treadmill for 40 minutes and it feels great. I also finished reading The Resort while I was on the treadmill. I'm really sad to say that I don't think this book ended up being that great for me either. I'm like so annoyed about it because I feel like for the most part I didn't really like a lot of the things that I read for this vlog other than the Reformatory, which like thank god. But I'm upset about it because I'm like, otherwise, I feel like I just read a bunch of flops. I don't know, for me personally, I just feel very underwhelmed by this story for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I really do feel like I never really connected with the characters, which like, I don't always need to connect with the characters in a thriller, but I think I need to care about them in some kind of way because I need to care about what's happening. And because I didn't care about the characters, it made the story feel very boring to me, even though I don't necessarily think there was anything wrong with the pacing of the book. Like, I don't necessarily think the plot is that boring, but because I didn't really care about the characters very much or like what was happening, it made the story feel a little bit boring. I feel like as far as thrillers go, this one just didn't bring anything new to the table that was very surprising. I don't want to generalize too much here because I don't know if this would be the case for everyone, but I really genuinely feel like if you read a lot of thrillers, this one's probably not going to do anything super surprising. I mean, maybe this is just a me thing because I feel like the second half of this book, oh my gosh, it was introducing so many thriller tropes that I usually don't enjoy. So like maybe this is just because I didn't like a lot of the tropes in this book. And I also found some things to be a little bit like not problematic, but just on the verge of being problematic, like yikes. I don't know, it was kind of messy at times. I feel like this is a thriller that feels like a thriller that should have been published like 5 to 10 years ago. Like something coming out like this right now just kind of feels odd to me. I feel like you can tell that this is an author's debut book in a way because there was a lot of like obvious misdirection that like as an avid thriller reader I was like, okay, well that's clearly not what's happening here. I also feel like the characters just especially drove me nuts because like that girl Brooke, who's like the influencer girl, she would just drive me crazy because she would just latch onto the idea that anybody was the killer without any real evidence. Also like the epilogue of this book, like I'm sorry, what? Really felt to me like this author was trying to make like a last ditch effort of like, look at this last twist in the epilogue, but it didn't really feel realistic or like what? It was just so out of left field. I just didn't care for the epilogue at all. Like, if anything, the epilogue just made me like, ugh, I roll even more. You know what was actually a little bizarre about this reading experience too is that sometimes I noticed, you know, because I was listening to the audiobook and I was following along in this physical copy, and sometimes I would notice that the audiobook was vastly different from what was happening in this book, because there would be like some moments where like a certain phrase gets changed or like a few words get changed, like little things like that, which like I get that. But then, for example, there was this one scene where like, I'm not even kidding, there were 3 paragraphs of text in the book that were completely skipped in the audiobook. It was like this random scene where this girl was like trying to unlock this guy's phone, and in the book, in the physical book, there was like a whole description of like, oh shit, what's his passcode, and like her trying to figure it out. And then in the audiobook, it literally said he must be one of the only guys in the world who doesn't have a passcode on his phone, and then it just cut to the next scene. And like there was 3 paragraphs in the book of her trying to figure out his passcode, and I was like, what? It's just so bizarre when I read books where the audiobook is so different. Like they actually change a lot on the audiobook from the real book. I don't know why that is. I mean, my guess, if I had to guess why this happens sometimes, I think it's because they're narrating the audiobook maybe of the ARC version, like the unfinished version of the book, and then they just don't go back and make the changes once the book publishes. Like that's my guess, if I had to guess any reason why the audiobook would be vastly different from like the final book. But I just thought that was like an interesting, weird thing that I noticed. So I couldn't even tell if there was 2 narrators on the audiobook or not because they both sounded exactly the same, and maybe that's part of the reason why I struggled so much with these 2 female characters. Like I feel like they read exactly the same. So I don't know, for me, this is probably going to be a 2-star. I just wasn't a huge fan of the resort. It makes me so upset. But you know what makes me feel a little bit relieved is because I actually had this as a potential BookTube option for the month of May. Like this book was one of the 3 books that my Patreon just voted on as a May BookTube selection, and it actually lost the poll, and that's why I decided to read it for this video. But I'm like, oh my god, thank god that this didn't end up being a BookTube pick. Not only because, you know, I didn't really care for this one and I never want to pick books from my book club that I don't like, but also because I genuinely feel like there's just not a lot to talk about with this one. And that's always my biggest fear with the book club, is like I end up choosing a book that not only do I not like it, but there's just nothing to talk about. There was just nothing that interesting going on that would provoke an interesting discussion for the book club, you know? So I'm really glad that this one did not end up being a BookTube pick. And if you want to find out which book did end up winning my May BookTube poll, then stay tuned for my March TBR video because I'll be announcing it then. But yeah, anyways, that is going to be a wrap on this reading vlog. What the heck? I'm obviously really glad that the Reformatory was such a huge success for me. I mean, especially because it is a BookTube book club pick. Like I'm on a roll so far this year. Otherwise, I feel like a lot of the other books that I read for this vlog were just kind of a major flop, and that makes me sad. So you'll have to let me know if you've read any of the books that I read for this vlog. Let me know what you think of them. Let me know if you're going to be checking any of these out. And thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye!